Joel Klatt, the voice of college football at Fox, is now joining us, and he is down in Orange County, and we're going to watch that Notre Dame Penn State game tonight. So is he, as we're down to the Final Four in college football. James Franklin said, and I don't want to go too far into the weeds on this, that he thinks all teams should be in a conference. I like that Notre Dame's independent. I think college football needs to be a little different than pro football. I'm for it. Do you believe going forward, not just this season, but going forward, NIL transfer portal, Marcus Freeman, is Notre Dame positioned well going forward for college football?
Certainly seems that way. And I think that maybe what James Franklin is touching on is that it is advantageous because they have kind of a direct carve-out in the college football playoff, and I think they would continue to get that direct carve-out even if this playoff changes to a 14-team model. I mean, you can understand why coaches would want them in a conference. I think that conferences inherently are more difficult than being independent.
Yeah.
Although, with their scheduling partnership with the ACC, it kind of depends on how that league is going. It was not very, very good this year. And then the other side of this would just be the financial impact. And Notre Dame and people around Notre Dame have told me that their independence is vital to the way that they raise money for their institution writ large, not just their athletic department and their football program. So that is a big piece of this. It's important to them on many different levels, including the donor base feeling like their dollars really matter for the institution.
I think this is the first year that college football is playing an NFL season, which is 16 or 17 games. And I think Ohio State has a huge advantage. Chip Kelly, who was gone. He knows the NFL rigors. He knows how to balance play calling, what to hide, how to interpret certain things. And I think it's an advantage. I think that's not a surprise is that the last 2 weeks, they have looked like a different offense. Will Howard's regained his confidence. And that college football now, at least at the end, is the NFL, which I don't think gives little guys much of a chance at all and gives the big dogs a decided advantage. But I think Chip helps Ohio State in this regard.
Well, don't forget that Ryan has NFL experience as well. And Brian Hartline has NFL experience. And I've talked at length with Ryan about this. And this goes back all the way to when I went in last year to do their spring game. And we talked at length about the length of the season and how they would approach it and how differently they were going to approach it than even what they have done previous. If you take a look at the regular season, they were one of the slowest offenses in all of college football. Their snaps per game were way down, and that was intentional because remember, if you've got better players, you would want to play a higher volume of snaps, and they didn't intentionally. They played very slow for this reason. It wasn't anything other than this is going to be a long season, and we want to make sure that we're at our best and we're fresh late. It was one of the reasons why the two running backs were big for them, getting Junkins in the portal. They also, and I would think that this is a very important piece of this, from a schematic standpoint, they were strategic in what they were showing teams during the course of the year. Their offensive and defensive game plans and structures have changed drastically during the course of the year, and that was intentional. Part of it was because they lost to Oregon and Michigan, and yes, we've all talked about that. But Colin, the other part of it was intentional from Brian Day and Chip Kelly that they didn't want to show everything. They didn't want to show every formation so that when they get into these games late in the year, they have things that the opposing defenses have not seen, and that is a very NFL structure.
Is there more pressure on Sark or Ryan Day tomorrow?
I think Ryan Day, just because of the Michigan aspect of this, because of the fact that they have now looked so dominant. They are so very clearly the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. It's one of the only things that will get that fan base off of his back from a Michigan loss perspective. Whereas Sark, let's face it, they were for about 10 years roaming around in the desert as a program, this Texas team.
Yeah.
And he's put them now back in the national semifinals in back-to-back years. He went on the road and beat Alabama. He went on the road and beat Michigan. He's now played for the SEC championship in his first year after winning the Big 12 championship in their last year in the conference. He has elevated this program to a point where now they can see some sustainability at the top. And for those reasons, I think Ryan is still under more pressure.
You do a great job on draft coverage. I got to ask you, I think Cam Ward's more talented arm mobility than Shedeur. Shedur's a bit more polished. The betting markets now have Cam above Shedeur. Who would you draft if you were a GM and needed a signal caller?
I would draft Shedeur. I think that he does what the NFL wants and needs more so than Cam. Cam's great, and I think both of these guys are top 5 picks. And this is the only part of the draft process that I don't love, Colin, is that when I say, like, well, I would take Shedeur, people are like, well, why do you hate Cam Ward? I don't. I love him. He should be a top 5 pick, and I think that he will have success. I like Shedeur because of the control that he exudes from the pocket. You know, he has such an understanding of the game, and then he can be both surgical and he can be kind of a magician at the same time. Whereas as Cam's game is a little bit different than that. It's a little bit more college. Shedeur's, I think, is a more NFL style. He can be surgical when he's on time and everything is right, and then he's got that kind of Fran Tarkenton ability to be mobile, get himself free, and make plays down the field. I would take Shedeur if I had the number 1 pick. And everything aligned. Although who knows, what the demands are going to be, from Shedeur in terms of where he wants to play.
One more question, 1 minute. Does Penn State have a shot tonight? You like James Franklin's chances?
Yes, I do. I think that they've got a good shot. That's a very evenly matched game. I will say this. I'm going to pick Notre Dame, but one of the things that Penn State has is the ability to learn from their history, and what they've done is gotten in their way at times. Yeah. Against Ohio State, they didn't give the ball to Tyler Warren inside the 10-yard line. I thought that they got away from Katron Allen against Boise State. If they just lean into where they can have success, they'll have a good chance to win this game. That program is elevated to a point where they need that tipping point victory, and it could be tonight.
Yeah, and it's interesting. As great a program as they are, it feels like all everybody's talking about is Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State. So very rarely in sports are you excellent and under-discussed. You're excellent, but viewed as sort of irrelevant. And Penn State's got 2 natties as an independent, by the way. So it's I've been talking about this with friends. I'm like, boy, what a great spot to be in. You're just that other team of the 4, and you have like 6 NFL guys all over your roster.
And maybe it's because they haven't had that win where you're like, oh, man, that's a great upset win, or that's a marquee win, a tipping point victory. They've beaten everybody that they should in college football for the better part of 4 or 5 years. They haven't had that victory over a team that maybe they shouldn't beat. And I think that's where the apprehension is.
Joel Klatt, you're great. Good seeing you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too, bud. You too. Have a good one.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.